I think I didn't do anything wrong, just replied to a stupid joke in the work chat, and now everyone acts like I blew up my whole life on purpose. I tapped one little flirty message back to a colleague. My husband read it on the shared tablet, and the next thing I knew, a stranger was handing me divorce papers in the lobby at work. I still don't see how a single reply turned into the end of my marriage. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm still not sure why everyone is acting like I burned the world down over one message in a work chat. I mean, yes, it was flirty, yes, it was public, but it was just words on a screen, and people write much worse every day. My name is Isolde. I answer angry client emails for a software company, and the only excitement I get most days is when someone sends a dumb joke in the team chat. So when Liam wrote that he should pay me in dinners for saving his account, I replied that it depended on where he took me. That was it. One line. One stupid line. Daniel was not even supposed to see it. He only opened the shared tablet to check the news, or so he said. Then he saw the notifications, tapped the little preview, and scrolled. He asked why my colleague was talking to me like that. I said it was normal office banter. He said he felt disrespected. I said he was trying to control me. That was the start. Weeks later, a stranger said my full name in the office lobby, handed me an envelope, and called it a divorce petition. I always go back to that afternoon in the office. The air felt heavy from the printers and the old coffee smell, and my screen was full of angry client emails. I was tired and bored, and I remember thinking that my life had shrunk into tickets and spreadsheets and microwave lunches. Then the team chat pinged on my screen. My name popped up in a message from Liam. He wrote that I had saved his account again and that he should start paying me in dinners instead of thanks. People reacted with laughing emojis. It was silly and light, and for a second I felt seen. I looked at his message and thought that I could say something fun back. I wanted everyone to see that I was not just the serious problem solver who fixed mistakes. I wanted them to see that men found me interesting, that I was still a woman, not only a mother and a wife. I typed that it would depend on where he took me, added a little wink, and hit send. A row of reactions appeared. Someone wrote that HR would need to approve. Another said that Liam was shooting his shot. A warm little wave went through me. It felt harmless. It felt like proof that I still had something. I did not think about the shared tablet at home. I knew Daniel checked the news on it sometimes, but I never thought about how all my work apps stayed logged in. I went on with my day. I answered more emails. I replied to a few private messages from Liam where he said I carried the team. I told him that he would be lost without me and that his clients loved him only because I fixed his mess. He sent a row of hearts. I smiled and locked my screen. On the way home that night, the train was crowded and hot. I scrolled through my phone and looked again at the chat. The flirt looked even smaller on the tiny screen. I told myself it was nothing. Everyone at work did it. People joked about drinks, late nights, hotel conferences. Some of them really cheated. I did not. I went home to my husband and my daughter. I answered messages, but I always ended up in my own bed. In my head, that meant I was loyal. Maybe not perfect, but loyal enough. When I walked into the apartment, Daniel was at the table with the tablet in front of him. The kitchen light was on, but the living room was dark. Mila was already asleep. His shoulders looked tense under his shirt. He did not greet me. He just looked down at the screen. He asked if I had a good day at work. I said it was normal, just busy. He turned the tablet around so that I could see the chat. The flirt message with Liam sat in the middle of the screen. My reply was bright and obvious. Above it, there were older messages. More hearts, more jokes, a few late-night comments I barely remembered. He asked why my colleague was talking to me like that. I said it was just office banter, and that he was overreacting. He said he felt like he was reading a conversation between two people who were not just co-workers. I told him that he was paranoid and that this was how people in modern offices talked. I said he was trying to control me and make me feel guilty for having friends. I watched the hurt in his face and thought that if I pushed hard enough, he would back down like always. He said he did not like the part about dinners or the hearts. He said it was not respectful to our marriage. I told him that respect followed results and that he should be proud that people at work valued me. I said he never took me out anymore. So, of course, a joke about dinner sounded big to him. I called him sensitive. I told him men did worse every day, and their wives did not explode like this. I acted like he was the one who had crossed a line by reading my chats. He asked if there was anything else he needed to know. I rolled my eyes and said that if he did not trust me, that was his problem. I reminded him that I came home every night, that I took care of Mila, that I paid bills on time. I said he should thank me instead of attacking me. I did not answer his question. I talked around it, brushed over it, made him feel stupid for even asking. That is what I was good at. Not telling clear lies, just moving the light until he could not see straight. Later, in the bedroom, I took my phone and sent a message to Nina. I told her that Daniel had lost his mind over an emoji from a co-worker. I said he had gone through my tablet like some jealous teenager. She replied that he needed to grow up and that this was what happened when men were scared their wives might be too good for them. I laughed and told her that exactly. He was lucky I was even with him. I left out the late-night messages. I left out my own hearts. I made it sound like he freaked out over one sentence. I even posted a vague story before bed. I wrote that some men could not handle that their wives were wanted by the world, and that it was not my job to shrink to fit someone's fear. Hearts and clapping hands rolled in from my friends. No one asked what Daniel had seen. No one asked what I had actually written. They just saw my side, my words, my version. When I came back from the shower, Daniel was still at the table. The tablet was off to the side now. His laptop was open. The room was quiet, except for a soft buzzing sound from the fan. He did not look up when I walked in. He asked if we could talk about it later, when things were calmer. I said there was nothing to talk about, and that he had already decided to see me as guilty. I told him I would not beg him to trust me. He nodded once, very slowly, and said that he had heard me. I went to bed and scrolled on my phone, still chatting with Nina about how dramatic he was. I told her that he would calm down and apologize in a few days. I reminded her that he always did. I fell asleep with the phone in my hand, feeling safe in my own story. In the middle of the night, I woke up because I heard a small sound from the living room. A drawer opened and closed, wood on wood, quiet but clear. I got up and walked to the doorway. The light over the table was on, but Daniel's back was to me. His laptop screen showed a folder and some moving files. He did not see me. I watched as he slid a tiny USB drive into his pocket, turned off the light, and walked past me in the dark without saying a word. The next morning, I told myself the USB was nothing. Daniel liked to back up photos and old tax files. He was always worried that the computer would die and take everything with it. I decided that was all it was. I did not want to think about him copying anything from the tablet. I made coffee and banged the mug on the counter, a little louder than needed. He came in quietly, kissed Mila on the head, and poured his own coffee without looking at me. He asked if I wanted to talk before work. I said I was too tired to repeat everything, and that I did not want to be punished every time a man sent me a joke. He said he did not want to punish me. He said he wanted us to be honest. I told him I was honest, and that he only hated the truth, which was that other people found me interesting. He just nodded and went to get his bag. On the way out, I saw the tablet on the chair by the door. The screen was dark. I picked it up and opened the chat app. The conversation with Liam was still there. The hearts, the jokes, the dinner line. I thought briefly about deleting it all. Then I told myself that if I deleted it, It would make me look guilty. I told myself that leaving it proved I had nothing to hide. That sounded clever in my head. I chose that feeling over the small knot in my stomach. A few days later, we had dinner at my parents' house. It was a crowded Sunday, with Lydia rushing between the stove and the table, and Martin pouring wine into mismatched glasses. Nina came in late, already laughing, and hugged me. She asked if things were still crazy at home. I said Daniel was still sulking over the work chat. I made a small face like I was embarrassed for him, not for myself. When Daniel arrived with Mila, my parents greeted him like usual. They did not know yet. I wanted them to know. I wanted someone older to tell him he was overreacting, so he would see that I was right. During dinner, when the plates were full and my father had talked about the weather and politics, I decided to start. I said that work had been interesting because a joke in our team chat had turned into a full drama at home. Lydia asked what joke, and Nina leaned forward with a grin. She told them that a coworker had flirted with me in the chat, and that Daniel had gone through the tablet like some detective. She made a little siren noise and everyone laughed. I told the story the way I wanted it. I said Liam had made a silly comment about dinners as a thank you for my help. I said I replied with a small joke, nothing serious. I said Daniel had then grabbed the tablet, scrolled through every message, and accused me of cheating with a colleague over a single line. I moved my hands a lot, showed my shock, my hurt. I did not mention the late-night hearts or the private jokes about Daniel. I made it sound like all his fear came from that one message. Martin shook his head and said that people my age were too used to texting and that we all made mountains out of phones. He told Daniel not to be so sensitive. Lydia said men needed to be proud when their wives were admired. She said a confident husband did not fear a little attention from others. She even said that when she was younger, she had men at work flirt with her, and that it never meant anything. Everyone looked at Daniel to see how he would answer. He put his fork down and sat back. He said it was not about admiration. He said he did not mind people seeing that his wife was smart and kind. He said it was about the way the messages looked, the timing, the tone. He said it felt like there was a private world where he was the punchline. His voice was calm. That almost made it worse. I wanted him to raise his voice so I could say he was scary. Calm made me look like the loud one. I laughed and said he was turning emojis into evidence. I said he made me feel crazy for having coworkers who liked me. I told my parents he made a face when I got messages, and that it was like living with a jealous teenager. Nina nodded along and said she would die if a man told her who could send her a joke. Everyone chuckled again. Daniel looked around the table. He saw that no one was on his side. He did not argue. He did not slam his hand down or leave. He just picked up his fork and said he did not want to talk about it anymore at dinner. Martin said that was wise. To everyone else, it sounded like the topic was closed. To me, it felt like a small win. I had turned him into the narrow-minded one. I had the room. Later, when we helped clear the dishes, Lydia took me aside. She asked if I was happy. I said I was, mostly, but that Daniel's insecurity made it hard. I said I felt watched and judged. She said marriage took work, and that men sometimes needed to be educated about modern life. She said to be patient, but also not to let him crush my spirit. I liked that phrase. It made me feel like a brave woman in a story, not like someone caught flirting with a coworker. In the living room, Nina sat with Daniel. When we came back, she told me that he had said he just wanted respect, and that he did not like being turned into a joke. She rolled her eyes and described it like a long, boring speech. I asked Daniel in front of everyone if he had given her a lecture. He said he had just explained how he felt. I told him he needed to stop performing sadness for my family and start looking at his own behavior. I smiled when I said it, so it sounded light, but the words landed sharp. On the way home, the car was quiet. Mila fell asleep in the back seat. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. I asked if he was going to ignore me all night. He said he did not know what to say anymore because any feeling he shared turned into a story I told to other people. I said that if he did not want to be the villain, he should stop acting like one. He frowned slightly and then just drove. When we got home and carried Mila to bed, I went to the kitchen. I needed a drink of water and a new place to rehearse my version in my head. After a few minutes, I went back to the living room. Daniel was there, at the table again, with his laptop open. The screen showed a spreadsheet with lines of numbers and little notes. At the top, the label said, household. I laughed and asked if he was doing our budget because I bought one new dress. He said he was just getting organized. His voice was neutral. I leaned over his shoulder and saw dates and names. Our rent, our savings, the daycare payments. I saw a new tab at the bottom, blank except for a title. September. I teased him about being boring. He closed the screen gently and said someone had to be boring in this house. I told him not to guilt-trip me with spreadsheets. He said nothing. I went to plug in my phone and noticed the tablet charging on the shelf. A small notification slid across it. File uploaded successfully. I tapped the screen, but it locked before I could see what app it was from. I assumed he had finally done his photo backup. I told myself that only a guilty person would suspect more than that. I took a selfie in the bathroom mirror and sent it to Nina with a caption about my controlling husband and his fear of group chats. She replied with laughing faces and told me I should come out with her next weekend. She said I deserved someone who did not treat me like property. I stared at my own face on the screen. I liked how I looked when I was a little angry. It made me feel sharp. I went to bed again believing that the story belonged to me, that as long as people laughed with me at Daniel, nothing bad could really happen. I did not see that he was letting me build the stage while he quietly moved behind it, stacking whatever he had saved onto that small, patient USB. The next weeks felt strange. On the surface, nothing big changed. I still woke up, packed Mila's bag, made coffee. Daniel still went to work. We still said good morning, good night, but everything between those things felt tight, like the air was thick and waiting for something. At the office, the team chat did not slow down. If anything, it got worse. After Nina's jokes and the dinner at my parents', I felt like I had to prove some point. I wanted to show that I was not scared of a few messages, that Daniel could not scare me into being plain and quiet. So, when Liam wrote that I was his secret weapon, I replied that he should be careful or his girlfriend would get jealous. He wrote that his girlfriend already was jealous. He added a fire emoji after my name. I told him she had good taste. It all felt clever at the time. In the break room, he leaned against the counter while I made tea. He asked if things at home were still dramatic. I said my husband was sulking and trying to make me feel guilty for being liked. Liam laughed and said some men could not handle competition. I liked that word, competition. It made me feel wanted. I told him Daniel should be grateful someone at work reminded me I was attractive. Liam shook his head, like Daniel was pathetic. It was easy to accept that. At home, Daniel did not argue anymore. He did not bring up Liam or the chat. That almost bothered me more than the questions. He moved his things into the guest room slowly, one book at a time. He said it was because his sleep was bad and he did not want to wake me. I told him he was being dramatic, but I did not stop him. Part of me liked telling friends that my husband refused to sleep with me because of a joke. It made him sound weak. It made me sound powerful. One evening, I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, half watching a show while Daniel answered an email on his laptop. Mila played with blocks on the rug. His phone lit up on the table. Before he could grab it, I saw a new contact at the top of the screen. Just a little scales emoji. No name, no letters. The message preview said something about next steps and documents. Daniel picked up the phone before I could read more. He walked into the hallway and shut the door. When he came back, I asked who the new contact was. He said it was someone from work. I laughed and said that people from work usually had names. He repeated that it was work stuff and that I did not need to worry. I said he made a huge deal over a few hearts in a chat, but then had secret contacts. He did not rise to the bait. He just asked if Mila had brushed her teeth. I felt something sharp in my chest. I told myself it was anger at his hypocrisy, not fear of what he might be planning. At the playground the next day, I sat on a bench while Mila climbed the slide. I called Nina and told her about the mystery contact. I said Daniel was probably texting his mother every move I made. She laughed and said maybe he had finally found a therapist. I told her he needed one. I said he was punishing me with silence, sleeping in the guest room, walking around like a ghost. I made my voice small and sad when I said it, so I would sound like the hurt one. Nina said I should live my life and not let his mood control me. She told me to enjoy Liam's attention, to go for after-work drinks, to remember that I was still young. I watched Mila on the swings and said I had to stay for our daughter. I liked how noble that sounded. I did not say that the truth was simpler. It was easier to stay and keep playing both sides than to make any real choice. When we went home, the apartment felt tidy in a way that made me uneasy. Mail sorted, shoes lined up, dishes done. Daniel was at the table again, laptop open to a folder view. I saw a list of tidy names, photos, work, household. Under those, 2 new ones, Archive A, Archive B. Inside one of them, rows of files with dates instead of names. He shut the laptop when he saw me looking. He asked how the park was. I said it was fine, then asked why he was filing things like he was moving out. He answered that he liked order. He said it made him calm. I said only people with something to hide needed that much order. He looked at me for a long second and then said that people who had been lied to also needed order. I told him he was not a detective. He said he did not want to be. He said he just wanted to understand what world he was living in. I told him he was being dramatic again and walked away. His calm voice made me feel like my own anger was bouncing off a wall. On Friday, a group from work planned drinks at a bar near the office. Liam invited me in the team chat. He wrote that the hero of the support team had to come. I told Daniel about the drinks in a quick, half-mumbled way while I put on makeup. He asked who would be there. I said just co-workers. He asked if Liam was going. I said of course he was part of the team. He looked like he wanted to say more, then simply said to have a good night and not come home too late. I heard the distance in his voice and decided he was trying to guilt-trip me. At the bar, the music was loud and the lights were low. People from the office laughed, shouted, clinked glasses. Liam stood close when he talked to me. He said he liked my top. I told him that someone had to appreciate it, since my husband only saw inappropriate outfits. The others laughed. Someone asked about the famous chat drama. I rolled my eyes and told the story again, the way that suited me. I said Daniel had accused me of cheating over one message. I said he slept in the guest room to punish me. I did not mention my own late-night messages, my careful cropping of screenshots. Liam showed the others part of the chat on his phone. He had saved it. My line about dinners flashed on the screen. I laughed and called it harmless. Someone joked that HR would send an email. I said I hoped HR had better things to do. Inside, a small worry woke up, but I tamped it down. I did not want to seem scared. I wanted to be the bold one. When I got home, the apartment was dark. Daniel had left a note on the counter saying Mila was with Helena for the night and that he had some things to do early in the morning. The guest room door was half open, bed made. Our bedroom bed was still unmade from the morning. I stood in the hallway for a moment, feeling oddly alone. On Saturday, I woke to the sound of the printer, a soft mechanical whir, then a single sheet sliding out. I walked into the living room. Daniel stood by the desk, feeding paper into the tray. I asked what he was printing. He said just some forms. I looked at the output tray. On top was a blank page. Under it, I saw a hint of text, black lines and small font. Before I could reach for it, he took the stack, tapped it straight, and put it face down on the shelf. He asked if I wanted coffee. I said I could make my own. He shrugged and left the room. The smell of warm toner hung in the air. It reminded me of the office, of the chat, of Liam. I told myself again that Daniel was being strange, that he was making this into a big drama to get attention or control. I did not let my mind stay on the idea of forms or of what might be printed under that blank top page. That night, after Mila came home, I put her to bed and finally lay down with my phone. A message from Liam waited at the top of the screen. It was a screenshot of my own flirt reply in the chat, the one about dinners. Under it, he had written 3 words: worth the risk. A small thrill ran through me. I liked that he saw it as a risk. It made me feel important. Before I could answer, I heard Daniel's car pull into the driveway. Headlights washed across the bedroom ceiling. The front door opened and clicked shut. I heard the lock turn, firm and final. When Daniel came in that night, I was still staring at my phone. Liam's message sat open, my own words framed and repeated back to me. I thought about replying. I imagined writing that I liked danger, that life was short, that I deserved more than coffee and silence. Then I heard Daniel put his keys in the bowl and hang up his jacket. The phone suddenly felt heavy in my hand. I locked it and slid it under the pillow. He came into the bedroom and asked if I had a good night. I said it was fine, and that people at work were actually fun, unlike some people. He did not rise to it. He just said he was glad I came home safe. That annoyed me. I wanted a scene that I could complain about later. Quiet did not give me a story. I told him he did not own me, that I could go for drinks without sending him a report. He just nodded and said he heard me. Then he said he had things to finish and went back to the living room. The next week, our friends invited us to a dinner. It was one of those crowded nights with shared food and board games. I almost said no, but then I thought about how people always believe the person they see more. I wanted our friends to see Daniel as the controlling, jealous husband. I wanted them to hear the story from me while he sat there, being boring. So I told the host we would come. We arrived with a bottle of cheap wine. The apartment was warm and noisy, shoes in a pile by the door. People hugged us, greeted Mila, sent her off with their kids to watch a movie in another room. I watched Daniel put the bottle on the table and stand near the wall, hands in his pockets. He looked smaller in that room, like the furniture was pushing in on him. I thought it would be easy. During dinner, someone asked about work. I said things were busy but lively. I hinted that the team chat had become a whole soap opera at home. Everyone leaned in. They liked drama. I told them, lightly, that a coworker had flirted with me in the group chat and that Daniel had reacted like he had found a stranger in our bed. People laughed. That laugh felt like a warm wave again. I liked that wave too much. They asked what the coworker had written. I said he had joked about paying me in dinners because I saved his accounts. I said I had replied in a playful way. I said it was just grown-ups having fun, nothing serious. I did not mention all the private messages after that. I did not mention the hearts or Liam's comment about risk. I made it sound like one small thing. Daniel was on the edge of the group, listening. He asked quietly if I was really telling everyone about this again. I said I was not ashamed of my life. I said only people who had something to hide insisted on secrets. Someone at the table laughed and said Daniel needed to relax. Another said he should be proud. Other men saw his wife as attractive. It was the same script as at my parents' dinner, just louder and messier. One of our friends, Luke, pulled out his phone and asked if he could see the famous messages. I hesitated for a second. Then I thought that hiding my phone would look guilty, so I opened the team chat and scrolled to the part that looked best for me. I showed them Liam's dinner line and my reply. I showed them Daniel's long message from the night he first confronted me, where he wrote that he felt disrespected and confused. I read it out loud in a dramatic voice, making it sound like a speech. People laughed at that too. Someone said Daniel wrote like he was in an old movie. Someone else said he sounded like a teacher scolding a child. I joined in, saying that he always turned small discomforts into big lectures. I watched his face as they laughed. He did not shout. He did not leave. He just sat there with his jaw tight. That calm bothered me. It made me feel like a bully, and I did not want to feel that, so I pushed harder. I told them he had moved to the guest room because of this. I said he was punishing me with distance because I refused to act guilty. There were gasps and more jokes. One of the women said she would never tolerate that. Another said she would flirt more out of spite. Liam was not there, but his name floated around the conversation. People asked what he looked like. They asked if he was more fun, more exciting. I shrugged and said he was just a co-worker, but my tone left room for their imagination. I wanted that. At some point, someone turned on music and people moved to the living room. A friend filmed a short video on her phone, people laughing and shouting about group chats and jealous husbands. I saw myself in the screen, laughing with my hand over my mouth. I looked young and free. Daniel looked like a shadow in the background. I told myself that image was proof that I was right about us. On the way home, the car ride was tense again. The streetlights flashed over Daniel's face, making it hard to read. I asked if he was going to give me another speech about respect. He said no. He said he had said everything he needed to say. I told him he had let our friends mock him by sitting there and saying nothing. He answered that I had done that, not him. He said he could not control what I chose to share. I did not like that answer. The next day at work, I noticed people looking at me in a new way. Two of my co-workers stood up from their desks and walked away when I came over. Later, in the break room, a woman from accounting asked if everything was okay at home. I said yes. Why? She said she had seen a video from the night before and that it looked intense. I laughed and said we liked to joke. She did not laugh with me. She said it did not look like a joke to her. That afternoon, our HR manager, Kara, sent me a message asking if we could have a quick chat. My stomach flipped a little. I went to her small office. She said she needed to remind me about company communication rules. She said personal relationships and flirtation in work channels could be risky. She did not say Liam's name, but it hung in the air. I smiled and told her it was all harmless and that some people took screenshots out of context to make drama. She looked at me for a long moment and said she hoped that was true. She said she had to ask everyone to be careful. When I got home that evening, Mila was at Helena's house. Daniel had picked her up from daycare and taken her there before I even finished my commute. I felt pushed out of my own role. I called Helena and asked why. She said Daniel had asked if Mila could stay for dinner and a movie. She sounded polite but cool. I told her I would come by to pick our daughter up. Helena's living room was tidy and calm. Mila was on the floor with toys. Daniel sat in an armchair. On the coffee table, there was an envelope, face down. Helena's eyes flicked to it and then back to me. She asked if I wanted tea. I said no. The envelope felt like a small, heavy object in the middle of the room, even though I could barely see it. Daniel said he had told his mother about the situation. He said he did not want to involve her, but that it affected Mila, so he felt he had to. I said he was making everyone hate me. I said he was painting me as a monster. Helena answered that she had heard what I had said about him in front of friends and family. She said it sounded like I had done some painting of my own. Her voice was measured. It hurt more than shouting. I snapped that at least I had not gone behind his back. Daniel looked at the envelope. He said very quietly that going behind someone's back was exactly what I had done with the chats and the jokes. He said he was done arguing about events that were written down. He said he had the dates and the messages, and that talking in circles would not change them. Then he put his hand on Mila's shoulder and said this was about giving her a stable home, not winning an argument. On the drive back to our apartment, my parents called. Nina had told them about the dinner. about the jokes, about Helena's reaction. My mother asked if my marriage was falling apart over a few texts. I said my husband was trying to make it fall apart. I said he was threatening to leave me and take my daughter. That was not exactly what he had said, but it sounded right in my head. My father sighed and asked Daniel in the background to think carefully before making big decisions. I enjoyed that. It sounded like they were still on my side. That night, the tension finally cracked in the hallway. I cornered Daniel near the bathroom and asked if he was leaving. I asked if he had a secret lawyer now because of his mystery contact and his neat folders. I asked if he wanted to destroy our family just to feel like a victim. My voice echoed in the narrow space. He stood very still. He said he was not interested in being a victim. He said he was interested in being treated with basic respect. He said he had tried to talk and that I had turned every private conversation into public entertainment. He said he could not stop me from performing, but he could choose his own response. Then he said he would handle everything properly now, that I would see soon enough what that meant. He walked past me to the guest room, closed the door, and did not say good night. The days after Daniel said he would handle things properly were quiet in a way that made my skin itch. There were no big fights, no slammed doors. He still took Mila to school, still washed dishes, still picked up his mail. I almost wished he would shout so I could point at him and tell everyone he was unstable. Calm left me with nothing to use. Small things started to stand out. A new calendar reminder appeared on the fridge, written in his neat hand. Meeting. Personal. It repeated every Thursday at the same time. I asked what it was. He said it was a thing he had to do downtown. I asked if it was therapy. He said it was not. I asked if he was planning to leave us. He said he was planning to protect himself. I told him that sounded dramatic. He did not answer. His phone buzzed more often, but he always stepped into the hallway or out onto the balcony before answering. Once, I heard him say something about documentation and timelines. Another time, I caught the words custody and schedule. When I asked who he was talking to, he said it was about work and family planning. I told him he should plan how to fix his attitude instead. He just nodded. One evening, I came home to find the dining table covered in neat stacks of paper. Bank statements, pay slips, copies of our lease. He was sorting them into piles. Mila was at the coffee table drawing. I asked if he was finally cleaning up his clutter. He said he was getting things in order. I said only people who intended to leave needed that much order. He said people who were tired of being laughed at needed it too. I told Nina about the papers on call that night. I said Daniel was trying to scare me with some fake project, that he would never actually go through with leaving. She agreed. She said men like him love to threaten and never follow through. She told me not to beg, not to show fear. She said if he wanted to leave, I would be fine. I repeated that to myself later, like a spell. I will be fine. Cara from HR called me into her office again a few days later. She said a video from the dinner at our friend's place had reached her, the one where I read out the chat and everyone laughed. She said it made the company look bad when private relationships and work channels mixed in public drama. I smiled and told her it was just friends being silly. She asked if Liam and I were okay working together. I said there was nothing to worry about. She looked tired. That same afternoon, I went out for a coffee break. On my way back into the office tower, my phone buzzed. It was Nina asking if Daniel had calmed down. I wrote back that he was still sleeping in the guest room and playing with paperwork. I added a laughing emoji. I thought that if I turned it into a joke one more time, it would stay small. The lobby was bright and busy, people crossing back and forth, the security desk humming with low talk. I walked toward the elevators, thinking about what to make for dinner. A man in a dark jacket stepped into my path. He looked down at a paper and then at me. He asked if I was Isolde Marek. I said yes, without thinking. He said he had documents for me and held out a thick envelope. He said they were divorce papers. For a second, the sounds in the lobby blurred. I felt heat rush to my face. I took the envelope because my hand moved on its own. I said he must be mistaken. He said the name and address matched and that I had been served. Then he turned and walked away like this was nothing, like he did it every day. Maybe he did. People at the security desk were watching. One of my co-workers was by the elevators and froze. She asked if everything was okay. I said it was just some legal thing, no big deal. My voice sounded too high. My fingers dug into the paper. The corner bit into my palm. I went into the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The first page had my name and Daniel's name, side by side, but separated by cold words. Petition, dissolution, marriage. There were lines about irretrievable breakdown, about trust, about cruelty that was not physical but public and repeated. I saw mentions of chat logs, social media posts, video recordings. Attached as exhibits, it said. There was a section about finances. It listed accounts, debts, assets. It said Daniel was requesting that certain savings be kept separate, that joint spending be limited, that any new debt not be shared without agreement. It said he had prepared a budget to show that he was not trying to harm me, only to protect what was left. Then there was a part about Mila. It was the only piece that made my chest feel hollow. It suggested shared legal custody, but primary physical custody, with him during school weeks, me on alternate weekends, and some holidays. It talked about stability, about the impact of conflict and public humiliation on a child's environment. It said that he had arranged his work hours to be there for her mornings and evenings. It mentioned that I often stayed late at work and went out with friends. My hands were sweating. The pages stuck together. I flipped through and saw my own words in small boxes, copied from chats and posts. The dinner line, the hearts, Liam's question about risk, my posts about jealous husbands who were scared their wives were wanted, the video from the game night, with me reading out his message and everyone laughing. Under each, there were dates and times. It looked cold on paper. There was no warm wave of approval, no emojis, no friendly faces. At the back, there was a note that he had already moved to the guest room and arranged a temporary schedule for Mila staying at his mother's on some nights to avoid fights. It read simple, not cruel. Like he was explaining a plan, not attacking me. I felt anger try to rise and cover the fear. I told myself he was overreacting. I told myself this was a scare tactic. I told myself he would back down once he saw how messy divorce would be. I told myself many things in that stall. None of them stopped my hands from shaking. When I came out, Kara was near the sinks. She had probably followed me up from the lobby. She asked if that was what she thought it was. I said Daniel was being dramatic. She did not respond to that. She asked if I needed to go home. I said I would finish the day. I did not want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me run. That evening, he came over to my parents' house, not the apartment. He had texted in the afternoon asking everyone to meet there, both families if possible. Lydia sounded worried on the phone. Martin sounded tired. Helena arrived with Mila, who went straight to the garden with Nina. We sat around the dining table. Daniel put a folder on the table, not the same envelope I had. He said he would keep it brief. He said he had filed for divorce that morning. He said he wanted to explain what that meant for Mila and for finances. He did not look at me when he said it. He looked at her grandparents. I started to talk over him, to say he was trying to destroy the family over a chat, to say he was punishing me for being attractive. He raised a hand slightly and asked them to let him finish. His voice was steady. That quiet carried more weight than any shout. He said he had gathered records of the messages between me and Liam, the videos of me mocking him, the posts where I turned our private life into entertainment. He said he had shown them to a professional and been told he had grounds. He said he did not want a war, but he also did not want to live in a home where he was used as a joke. He slid a copy of the custody proposal toward my parents. My mother scanned it, and her face went pale. My father asked if this was really necessary. Daniel said he thought it was, if we wanted clear rules and less chaos for Mila. Helena nodded. She said it was better to have structure than endless fights. I tried to claim that he had twisted things, that the messages were out of context. He said the context was months of me laughing at his pain in front of others. He said context was the video, where I read his words to a room and everyone jeered. He said he was done begging for respect. Nina looked at the papers and then at me. She asked quietly if I'd really said all those things. I wanted to say no, but the dates and screenshots were right there. I said they had been jokes, that everyone joked like that. Daniel said he did not care what other people did. He cared about what had been done to him. He stood up. He said he would move out by the end of the week. He said he hoped we could keep things civil for Mila. He said he would not talk about me to her, that he would let the documents and the process speak instead of gossip. Then he thanked my parents for listening and left, his back straight, his steps even. I stayed at the table, the copy of the petition heavy in my hands, my own words staring back at me from cold paper as the only sound left in the room was Mila's laughter, faint through the open window. The judge read the temporary orders, confirmed shared custody with Mila living mostly with Daniel, and asked if I had any questions. I said no. In the courthouse lobby, my parents hovered behind me while Daniel walked past, shoulders relaxed, papers in hand. He didn't look back. I finally did.